The night Santa went crazy. The night Saint Nick went insane. Oh, hi there. I didn't hear you break into my apartment for this obviously staged video intro. Now, the real geeks are, of course, on our holiday hiatus. We've recorded our reviews for Star Wars Episode 9 and Cats. We just weren't able to get them edited before going on break, so those will be coming, I would expect next weekend. But just between you and me, I will tell you right now, my rating for Cats will probably shock and surprise an awful lot of people. Now, that said, we of course didn't want to leave you without content over the holiday season. So, as I engage in my own Christmas tradition of wrapping tiny presents in large boxes, because I love to mess with my family, I've asked the rest of the cast to join me in sharing some of our favorite holiday films with you. So with that, please enjoy these suggestions from the members of the cast that actually had the time to sit down and record a video. And then I'll come back to introduce my favorite videos via the clip that I recorded last year. So until then, from my house to yours, Merry Christmas. Now get the hell out of my apartment.
So my favorite holiday movie is Richard Donner and Bill Murray's Scrooged from 1985. Now, about a year ago, I went into detail on my channel, My Gender is Cinema, about why and how Charles Dickens' A Christmas Carol is my absolute favorite holiday story whatsoever. I just simply find that is more apt to what people think Christmas is about, or the general spirit of the season, than any religious text or anything. And I believe it to be ultimately adaptable to any situation. And Scrooged is a prime example of why that is. So this was produced in 1985, and it is in the height of the Reagan era, and it is covered with Reaganism. It takes place in upscale Manhattan, with a executive on a television network being the Scrooge of the story. And he is constantly presented with 80s-esque social issues, namely homeless, racial issues, the manipulation of medium and resources in consideration to those around him. And he is a Gordon Gekko-esque 80s Reaganite monster. He's essentially Donald Trump. But at some point in the story, as of course occurs in The Christmas Carol always, he finds his soul. And in this case, his soul is the embodiment of the people around him that he has ignored. Specifically, his assistant, who takes on the role of the Cratchits. But instead of just being poor working class Londoners, they're black people in Reagan America. And that makes the story all the more telling and important as to the relations, the real world relations, and how you can carry forward the messages into the modern world. He is a rich white man who has all the resources and power and money that he needs. And yet he allows this abuse to occur to someone who is close to him, who is of a different race. And throughout it, he learns to accept and understand how he was wrong and what his actions and inactions have done to help make their lives worse. Namely in the form of the mute child who will later, if he does nothing, instead of dying, will be institutionalized. There's his ex-girlfriend who helps specifically the poor who have been pushed out by Reagan policy decisions. There's a callback to boomer era retro nostalgia when they go back to the 50s, and they show that actually what is considered to be like this A Christmas Story-esque kind of glowing plastic reflection of the future of the 50s is actually really depressing and super abusive. His father didn't really give a shit about him. They just sat him in front of the newly invented television, and that was his babysitter. And it's also about the power of mediums in shaping people. It's not just, oh, here's a Christmas story, oh, here's a fun little tale. It's about the dangers of unvetted resource and media access without context, without understanding. And it's all formulated around a play within a play of the Christmas Carol being performed live and being abused. The story is intentionally being abused so that it can make more money for this company, this soulless company, and in the end, instead, it becomes infused with actual purpose, actual soul, actual intent of the original author. And it includes my favorite Christmas song that is not actually a Christmas song, which is oh my god, lending him a helping hand. Help out your fellow man, put a little love in your heart. It's not a Christmas song, but it cuts to the actual point of the season far better than any actual Christmas song does. And quite frankly, if you give Bill Murray any excuse to give these wonderful renditions of boomer era songs, I think it's great. This is a boomer movie, but it's kind of about the failures of the boomer generation in ignoring the very concepts that they came into power with, the grand aspirations, and formats that as the Christmas Carol. It's fantastic. It's layered, it's brilliant, it's funny, it's joyous. Every performance in it is fantastic, and I really suggest you check it out.
Hi guys, happy holidays. Real Geeks asked me to do a little video clip on my favorite movie to be added to the compilation that's being made. I tried to narrow it down to just one, and I couldn't do it. So here are my top 5. My very first one that I liked, not because anybody else in the family was watching it, but because I actually liked it, was Santa Claus is Coming to Town with Fred Astaire and Mickey Rooney. And it was the stop animation one that Rankin Bass brought out in 1970. So, it's got a cute little penguin, and it's got the Winter Warlock, and it's got the Burgermeister Meisterburger. I think the reason why I like this one so much is because there's one song in it that actually became a mantra for me throughout most of my life. And that is One Foot in Front of the Other. So anytime that you're trying to do something new or that there's a challenging part of life, this song would come to mind for me. And it's basically put one foot in front of the other, and soon you'll be walking across the floor, and put one foot in front of the other, and soon you'll be walking out the door. So, keep at it, and eventually you'll be successful. Just don't give up. One of my other favorite childhood ones would be the original black and white Miracle on 34th Street. And I love that one because it's so innocent and so magical. And, Santa Claus, or Kris Kringle, is there, and he's trying to do what he does. He's trying to give magic and happiness to people, and he's being taunted at every turn. And the man's put on trial. And here's this little girl, Susan, that believes in him, and she never stops believing in him. And I think my favorite scene is when all of the letters, the lawyer was like, wait, all these letters that kids write to Santa Claus, where do they go? Well, they have to be delivered to Santa Claus. And that's how he ends up proving to the court that this man really is Santa Claus, because he has the mail delivered to him at the courthouse. Another one would be, excuse me, Muppet Christmas Carol. And I mean, that's self-explanatory. Who doesn't love Muppets and who doesn't love Christmas Carol and songs and dancing and the whole idea of the spirit of Christmas? In keeping with that, one of my other favorite ones, I stumbled across this when it first came out. I used to watch Law and Order, and Jesse L. Martin was one of the actors on the show. And in 2004, there was a movie production, made for TV movie, of Christmas Carol, the musical. And it had Kelsey Grammer as Scrooge, and Jesse L. Martin, I think, did the Ghost of Christmas Present. I'd have to check that out. I haven't been able to see this movie since that one time, but I love it, and I would love to see it again. And that was, I think, the year before Rent came out. So, again, Jesse L. Martin and singing, and just, yeah, that's about where it is. So, yeah, there's a theme there. The only one that's not a musical is The Miracle on 34th Street. But, there you are. Bye, guys. See you all in the new year.
Oh, hi, you're still here. I don't know why, I thought I asked you to leave, but since you're here, I truly hope you enjoyed those film suggestions from the rest of the cast. I have no idea what anyone said as I'm recording this before they do, so enjoy these suggestions that I gave last Christmas. Meanwhile, I'll be enjoying another personal tradition, firing up the Xbox 360 and joining the 3rd Street Saints in saving Christmas from the evil Krampus. So until next holiday season or next weekend when our reviews for Star Wars and Cats come out, enjoy these last ideas, and again, Merry Christmas. Now get the hell out of my house. Hey, geeks and nerds, Mike here. It's Christmas Eve, and we're all getting settled as we await the arrival of Santa Claus himself, or as us Whovians know him,
Father Christmas, Santa Claus, or, as I've always known him, Jeff.
With Christmas Day coming up, we're of course going to be inundated with Christmas movie after Christmas movie. And if you're anything like me, you're going to be spending a good portion of the day watching the Alastair Sim version of A Christmas Carol, whether you like it or not. So, I wanted to take a few minutes to hopefully save you by sharing some of my favorite Christmas specials. And if you're anything like me who actually doesn't like Christmas movies in general, they're too long, and frankly, I tend to burn through Christmas very quickly, then have I got material for you. Now, we're going to start with what's probably the single greatest Christmas special I've ever seen, and is the closest we're going to get to the Muppet Shared Universe with 1987's A Muppet Family Christmas. Now, I mean no disrespect when I say this toward a Muppet Christmas Carol, but I'm sorry, this is the best Muppet film ever released. Now, this was originally a TV special airing in 1987, and if you've never heard of it, there's a very simple reason for that. Sadly, this special never made it past DVD, but on the plus side, as with every special that I'm going to be talking about, these are all available on YouTube, and I will be sharing the links down below. Now, this is basically Fozzie decides to bring the Muppet Show gang to surprise his mom over the Christmas holidays because, as far as he knows, she's going to be spending time at her farmhouse alone over the holiday. He doesn't know that she's rented her farmhouse to Doc from Fraggle Rock, who wants to have a nice, quiet Christmas. And meanwhile, she's actually booked surf lessons and plane tickets to Bermuda. So Fozzie and the crew show up. She has to give up her vacation to get them all settled and taken care of. And then the Sesame Street crew shows up, and just for good measure, they find a way to crowbar in Fraggle Rock. And when I say crowbar, keep in mind this is not a negative thing, as frankly, it was the 80s. nobody cared a whole lot about story technique. If they wanted to get a property into a film, so help them, they were going to do it. Now, the best thing here is this is pure Christmas, the gathering of family, carols, present exchanges, all squeezed into 45 minutes, so you're not beaten over the head with it, and it ends with the final television appearance, sadly, of Jim Henson, who would die several years after this was originally aired of cancer. Next up, we're actually going to go very, very far back in time. Now, for those of you who were born young enough to never know life without the internet, before we had podcasts, we had these things called radio shows. Now, these predominantly ran from the late 1920s or so up to about the late 1950s. And one of the most prominent of which was The Shadow. This was the character of Lamont Cranston, who somehow, someway, and I say this because depending on whether you read The Shadow magazine or listened to the radio show, it's debatable as to how he gets his powers. But he has the ability to cloud men's minds through the power of hypnosis. Now, the specific episode that I'm referring to aired on December 24th, 1939, and is called The Stockings Were Hung. Now, in this episode, it's essentially the Shadow's version of A Christmas Carol, as in both his identity as the Shadow and Lamont Cranston. He sets out to help newspaper boy. Yes, there was a time when newspapers were sold by young boys standing on street corners. We're going to skip all the inappropriate jokes. I'm aware of how that phrasing sounded. So they discover that newspaper boys, Spike Grover. Look, it's Christmas Eve. I'm tired. I'm amazed I can talk. Spike Grover's family is in trouble, very serious trouble, as mom is out of the picture and dad has gone missing. He's been basically beaten with it in an inch of his life to the point that he has no idea who he is, nor that he is actually the part owner of an importing company that has been stolen out from under him. As a result of this, the Shadow basically goes all Ghost of Christmas Past on the villain of the hour's ass. I'm aware that I keep rhyming in this episode. Deal with it. And this is essentially, like I said, this is a version of A Christmas Carol. It's a version of A Christmas Carol I can goddamn tolerate. And finally, my third recommendation. This is the Christmas special that you have in your back pocket for if you're hosting a Christmas party and you hit the point where you're tired, you want to start cleaning up, and you just want everyone to leave. And for this, I recommend the He-Man and She-Ra Christmas special. Again, this was another TV special that aired back in the 80s when everything was a toy commercial and companies and TV production studios were going to cash in on the holiday season. They didn't give a shit about how. From the moment this thing opens, when you hear the opening theme music, which is best described as the themes from He-Man, She-Ra, and Jingle Bells, all put into a blender for no reason whatsoever, you have a pretty good idea of the type of insanity you are in for. They basically all but kidnap two kids from Earth and bring them into Eternia, as well as stopping the show for the sole purpose of explaining that He-Man's mom is actually from Earth. And this is for the sole purpose of crowbarring Christmas into the story of He-Man. Because, again, it didn't matter how they did it. Skeletor gets infected with the Christmas spirit, and that in and of itself is more than enough reason to watch this glorious mess. And then they have the nerve to have She-Ra villain Hordak flying around in a helicopter that is the single most phallic thing I have ever seen in an 80s program. I can also speak from personal experience when I say, if you want to get people out of the room, put this thing on, they will leave. I have broken people at Christmas parties with this glorious insanity. So, with that, I hope these recommendations are helpful to you. These are the shows that I can't get through Christmas without. So, with that, I'm going to wrap up by saying, Die Hard is a Christmas movie. I don't care what anyone says. So, Merry Christmas to all, and
keep the change, you filthy animal.
Don't forget to hit those like and subscribe buttons, share this video with your friends, and drop us a line anytime you like.